My name is Jonas Locke. I'm the head of valuation and advisory at Altus Group. Well, the interesting thing is I don't believe decarbonization efforts are accurately reflected in today's valuations. I believe we're at a point now where the industry is starting to realize that we need to make some progress around reflecting the relative investment in decarbonization. But I believe, we're at a point right now where we need to put that work and effort in, and we need to educate valuation professionals and appraisers on how to do that. So I think we're at the very early stages of recognizing these things, and we're developing methodologies, we're developing best practices on how to deal with that. But I wouldn't be confident to say that they're currently being reflected. To me, there's three main barriers. I think for one, it's data and its measurement of it. So in Canada, there isn't really a system that can accurately compare one building to the next and show the relative investments that have made in decarbonization. So it's challenging for evaluators to compare building A with building B accurately. And I think it's a very important part of what we do is to have data to use to compare. I think another major barrier I believe is the lack of transactions. And in Canada, we haven't seen a lot of transactions, period, for a couple of years. And that has to do with things outside of this issue. It has to do with geopolitical issues, economic issues, COVID, things like that. But there's been a relatively slow transaction volume across Canada, and when it comes to decarbonization and green buildings, we haven't really seen any transactions where the seller or the purchaser, the vendor or the purchaser, have specifically made adjustments for these factors. So we're really waiting on the market to start to transact around some of this stuff so that we can then measure it. And I think the third thing I would say would be around knowledge and experience. As an industry, we simply don't have the knowledge and experience around how to handle green building valuations, and that's like going to be a very important thing to invest in the near future, is getting our industry up to speed on what methodology should apply to green buildings, how do we measure these things, and that'll be a big step forward. The big influence that net zero and other sort of regulations have is they add risk to real estate. So whether there's regulations in place currently or we anticipate coming, it adds a layer of risk to the buildings that haven't gone through those processes and cycles. So, and a big part of valuing real estate is looking at the appropriate return to compensate for the risk. So for me, it's about risk. Is your building going to be able to comply? Is it going to be able to comply easily? Is a major investment needed to get you to compliance? So for me, it has a lot to do with risk. Until we really understand what the regulations could look like or will look like, and can build a path to that, we're stuck with risk. And I think that's a big part of it, is how much risk is there? How do we measure that risk? Well, I think a lot of what we're talking about around decarbonization comes from the tenants and from the users of real estate. The landlords that we speak with and the building owners that we speak with, they'll tell us that in a lot of cases, the tenant or the users of the space own the equipment, they own the contract with the utility authority. They have a lot of say in how a building operates. It's really only big office buildings and big multi-tenant complexes where the landlord truly has control over a lot of that. So it really does have to start from the user and from the tenant. So I think the industry in the next 12 months will be heavily influenced by uncertainty, if that makes any sense. So I think what we're going to see here is that it's going to be difficult to do some of the things that we want to do, some of the things that our clients want to do. So I think what's going to have a big impact is navigating that uncertainty, putting plans in place that are flexible, that can survive, an uncertain climate. And I believe we'll enter a more stabilized period, in the near future. But how we get from here to there, I think, is really going to have a big impact on the market this year.